A warm welcome back to the channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. It's time to take a look at your latest industry news, with focus on an aircraft retirement, Philippine Airlines boosting their route network, and Virgin Atlantic also doing the same. That's where I want to begin. Virgin Atlantic is continuing with its own plans to grow its route network, with expansion towards India scheduled to commence in October of 2024. The UK-based airline has announced it'll launch a second daily direct flight between London Heathrow and Mumbai to enhance not just customer but also cargo operations. I'll get into why the cargo area is important shortly. Service is expected to commence on the 27th of October 2024 when the airline will deploy one of its newest additions to the fleet, the A350-1000, on the flight. This aircraft offers customers a choice of upper class, premium and economy delight, classic, and just generally light. The latest service is also expected to complement the carrier's existing commitment to the country, with flights also offered towards Bengaluru and Delhi, and the already operational, as we know, first daily Mumbai flight. By the time this latest flight is launched, Virgin Atlantic says it'll offer 5 daily flights into the country, and by 2025, over 1 million seats will be offered towards India. The growth is also highlighted through a 350% increase since 2019, with the region becoming even more critical for the airline. And it's not the only airline that is putting a significant importance on growth in India. Virgin Atlantic actually goes as far as saying that India's position in the network has seen so much growth that it is now only second to the United States, and therefore is the largest growth area outside of the US, which we know is hugely important for Virgin Atlantic. Fashion, tech, and pharmaceuticals are also sectors that are set to benefit from the second daily flight. Virgin Atlantic highlights that the additional cargo space that is now available on aircraft to support the movement of these plus more goods is an attractive option. The cargo division will offer 40 million kilos of space to and from India on the 5 daily services, equivalent to a 336% increase compared to 2019's levels. Virgin further highlights its strategic partnership with Indigo, which helps facilitate onward travel to other popular Indian destinations that it does not currently serve with its own aircraft. Over 800,000 customers have utilized the partnership thus far to reach an additional 36 destinations. A presence in India is set to extend not just with regards to flights, but also in terms of the crew that it employs, with the focus being placed on having, on average, 4 Indian-based cabin crew members for each Virgin Atlantic flight. On to Oman Air, who are following through with their fundamental fleet restructuring movements, which now includes the retirement, formally, of the Airbus A330 fleet. A fleet retirement is as Oman Air attempts to restructure and downsize. This strategy is considered the best possible means of making money long into the future and obviously trying to be sustainable. Oman Air concluded A330 flights per flight radar data on March 30th, 2024, at least for its own operations, with some of these units actually already being leased out elsewhere to continue flying with other airlines. Notably, that is Qatar Airways. The Airbus A330 has actually remained a cornerstone of the Oman Air fleet for 15 years, with around 22% of its active fleet now retired. While this results in a significant capacity loss, it is deemed the best decision to ensure long-term survival. While a fleet reduction makes headlines, the airline will also need to make careful changes to its route network to reflect the retirement of the widebody, which will notably see key locations removed entirely and others significantly reduced. Airlines downsizing has become a common occurrence over the last 5 years too. However, Oman Air will look at other successful examples that have emerged as a leaner, profit-making, and better airline for the future, and they will hopefully look to replicate this. In 2023, the Omani government did make the important yet also tough decision to restructure, this being a state-owned airline to protect its position within the industry. Following years of losses, a restructuring came. But see, debt continued to rise, and ultimately this debt rose to levels that were no longer controllable or feasible for the long term. And radical decisions needed to be made, with revised strategies being implemented. Despite apparent attempts to make money, Oman Air has always to a certain extent struggled with that. A poor business model mixed with additional competition and several other factors meant that Oman Air was never quite, say, as optimal as maybe it would have liked. Competition in the Gulf sector, we know as well, has only increased in the last few decades, and Oman has never necessarily been able to compete with the big guns. There's nothing really wrong with that, but it needs to have a solid route network and a solid business plan, and many would argue that this hasn't necessarily existed over recent times, and now they are truly feeling the results from it. Over to the final story of today. Philippine Airlines has announced plans to boost its network towards the United States, with non-stop flights between Manila and Seattle slated to launch. The carrier says service will commence on the 2nd of October 2024, with the airline being the first carrier to link the US Pacific Northwest region with direct flights to the Philippines. With almost 1 million Americans visiting the country in 2023, the airline says that this is incredibly encouraging. Additionally, the US has become the second largest source of tourists to the Philippines. So, therefore, what you can gather from that is it's a pretty lucrative market to expand into. The airline believes that the departure times of 10:40 p.m. from Terminal 1 in Manila and 11:40 p.m. in Seattle are optimized to basically allow for maximum travel time throughout that day from other ports for passengers to, say, reach Manila or Seattle to make these flights if their origin point is not at these locations. Service will initially depart 3 times weekly, departing on every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, with the airline slated to use the Boeing 777-300ER. Onward connectivity within the United States is highlighted, with the likes of Chicago, Houston, Las Vegas, and Washington, D.C. all within reach, but if we're looking closer to Seattle, nearby ports of Portland are present. That is because Seattle is known as a port city, therefore it'll always come with pretty hefty connections. And additionally, for those traveling towards the Philippines, and specifically Manila, they will also have onward connectivity options to nearby cities, whether this is through the domestic or regional international network that is provided by Philippine Airlines. Locations such as Bangkok, Hong Kong, Cebu, and Kuala Lumpur were all mentioned as prospective destinations, but there were others that went unnamed that we know are available. That's going to conclude today's aviation news recap. If you have any thoughts, you're more than welcome to drop it down below in the comments. Thank you very much for your support here on the channel. It is certainly appreciated. Please do take care. Do also be safe. I'll see you same place, same time tomorrow for your latest industry news. And we'll fly.